Rain fell over Delta 9 Colony, washing the dust and neon lights into rivers that ran through cracked streets. The city was alive but cold, full of noise, engines, and people who didn't look twice at anyone. In a dark corner between two abandoned towers, a teenage boy named Ryan searched for food scraps inside a metal bin. His jacket was torn, shoes worn out, and his hands shaking from the cold. He had been living like this for months, a ghost among machines. He used to dream of becoming a pilot. Now his dreams were smaller, just finding enough to survive one more night. The colony's higher levels were for the rich aliens and humans who ruled the trade routes. Down here in the lower sectors, people like Ryan were invisible. As thunder rolled overhead, Ryan heard a sound that froze him, a soft cry coming from the alley ahead. It wasn't the cry of a cat or a machine. It was a voice, weak, trembling, and scared. He turned his head slowly. "Help. Someone, please." The voice came again. Ryan's heart jumped. He moved carefully through the puddles, his shadow flickering under the red streetlight. There, lying against a wall, was a young alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, faintly glowing in the dark. Her hair, long and white like snow, was tangled and wet. Her eyes were covered with a bloody cloth, and she was shaking. Ryan stepped closer. "Hey, are you okay?" No answer, just a small movement of her hand. He knelt beside her, noticing strange marks on her wrists, deep bruises like she had been tied. Her clothes looked expensive but torn, and her breathing was shallow. He hesitated. Helping her could mean trouble. The city guards didn't like humans touching aliens, especially the highborn ones. Still, she looked so helpless. When he tried to lift the cloth from her eyes, she flinched and whispered, "Please, don't leave me here." That single line hit him harder than the cold rain. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "I'm not leaving you," he said quietly. She was light, too light, when he lifted her into his arms. The moment he did, her fingers gripped his shirt tightly, as if she was afraid he'd disappear too. Ryan looked around. The streets were empty now, but a drone hovered far off, scanning the area with a red beam. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. This girl wasn't just hurt. Someone was hunting her. He ducked into the shadows and started walking fast. The girl's head rested on his shoulder, her voice soft. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. Then she fell silent again. Ryan didn't know why, but that name felt heavy, important somehow. He moved through the narrow side streets, stepping over puddles and broken neon signs. Each time thunder cracked, he felt that drone light sweep closer. He knew the city's scanners. If they found him carrying an alien, they'd call it kidnapping and he'd be shot on sight. He reached an old passage beneath a junkyard. The air was damp, filled with the smell of rust and fuel. He laid Lyra down gently against a wall and checked her pulse. It was weak but steady. He tore a piece of his shirt to wipe the blood from her cheek. Her eyes, still hidden behind that cloth, fluttered. "Where are we?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," he lied. "You'll be okay. I'll find someone to help you." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Humans always think they can fix everything." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, a loud metallic hum echoed through the tunnel. A blue light flashed across the wall, the scanner beam from a patrolling mech. Ryan's heart stopped. He picked her up again and pressed his back against the cold wall. The light passed inches from his face. He held his breath, praying it wouldn't detect them. Seconds felt like hours. Then the light faded away and the mech's heavy steps moved on. Ryan exhaled shakily. He looked down at Lyra. She was half-conscious, whispering something in a language he didn't understand. Her hand glowed faintly, the same color as the markings on her wrists. "What are you?" he murmured. No answer, only the sound of her breathing. Ryan sat beside her, staring into the dripping darkness of the tunnel. He had no food, no plan, and no idea who she really was. But something deep inside told him this moment would change everything. He couldn't explain it. It was like the universe had dropped her in his path for a reason. He adjusted her in his arms again and stood up. The rain outside had slowed to a whisper. The sky was a dirty mix of orange and black, and the colony's towers rose like jagged knives. Ryan started walking toward the distant lights of the old healers district. He'd heard of a woman there, a medic who didn't ask questions. As he moved, the girl stirred once more. You shouldn't have helped me, she said weakly. They'll come for you too. Ryan glanced down at her and managed a small smile. Let them come. Lightning flashed above, painting their silhouettes against the wet streets. A ragged human boy and a blind alien girl, walking through the storm together. Neither of them knew that across the colony, a dozen armed mercenaries were already tracking her signal. And one of them had just whispered into his comms, "We found her." The tunnels beneath Delta 9 Colony were old, cold, and filled with echoes of forgotten days. Ryan walked fast through the dripping passageways, holding Lyra tightly against his chest. Every step splashed through muddy water. Every breath came out in white mist. He didn't know where he was going, only that staying still meant death. Behind him, faint mechanical sounds grew louder. The Syndicate trackers were close. He could feel it. The sound of hovering engines, the clank of armored boots, getting nearer with every second. Ryan looked down at Lyra. Her head rested against his shoulder, eyes still covered by the cloth. Her breathing was weak, her silver skin dimming like a fading light. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I'll get you help." She moved slightly, whispering, "You shouldn't have come this far. They'll kill you for me." He smiled weakly. Too late to turn back now. The tunnel opened into an underground transit station, half collapsed, covered in dust and neon graffiti. Broken trains lay in silence, their windows cracked like spider webs. He laid her on an old seat for a moment, trying to catch his breath. The giant hollow screen on the wall flickered alive, an emergency broadcast. A voice echoed through the empty space. "Attention, all sectors. Missing Lyra Krail, daughter of Syndicate Leader Vorn Krail. Suspected abductors, human male, age unknown. Approach with caution. Kill if resisted," Ryan froze. His reflection glowed in the flickering light. Dirty face, torn jacket, tired eyes. He realized the truth. They thought he had kidnapped her. Lyra stirred and reached for him, her voice soft. "You saw it, didn't you?" He nodded slowly. "You're his daughter." "The mob boss." Her lips trembled. "I didn't choose it. I ran away." Her voice cracked. "He wanted to use me, for my abilities." "Abilities?" Ryan frowned. Before she could answer, the station's ceiling lights snapped to red. The hum of drones filled the air. "They found us," Ryan muttered, grabbing her hand. They ran, down the narrow service tunnels, through flickering light and falling dust. A drone's red beam cut through the fog. Beep, beep, beep. Ryan ducked behind a pillar, pulling Lyra down with him. The drone's sensors swept past their heads by inches. Ryan looked around desperately, then spotted a service ladder leading up. "This way," he hissed. He climbed fast, carrying Lyra over his shoulder. His muscles screamed with pain, but he didn't stop. They reached a rusted hatch. Ryan kicked it open and climbed out into the night. The upper level was chaos, streets filled with steam, broken lights, and strangers in long coats. They moved fast through the crowd, heads low. But the Syndicate patrols were already here, armored aliens with glowing visors scanning every face. Ryan whispered, "We need to hide." He led Lyra into a narrow side street full of hanging cables and dripping pipes. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them. He pressed her against the wall and covered her mouth gently. 2 soldiers passed by, talking in a metallic alien language. When their voices faded, Ryan exhaled. "Come on, we're close to the lower bazaar. I know someone who might help." They turned a corner and froze. A drone hovered right in front of them. Its red light locked on Ryan's face, target identified. Human male. Before it finished, Ryan swung a broken metal pipe and smashed it hard. Sparks flew. The drone crashed to the ground, smoke rising from its circuits. Alarms blared across the street. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run!" They sprinted through the alley as soldiers shouted and fired plasma bolts. Blue flashes lit the darkness, tearing through walls and trash bins. Ryan shielded Lyra with his body, diving behind an overturned vehicle. He looked around and spotted an old vent shaft just big enough for 2. "There!" He crawled inside first, pulling Lyra behind him. The shaft was narrow, filled with grime, but it led deeper underground, away from the gunfire. As they crawled, Lyra whispered, "Why are you doing this?" He paused. "Because no one ever helped me when I needed it. Maybe this time I can make it different." She was silent for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You sound human." Ryan smiled faintly in the dark. "That's the idea. Finally, they dropped out into a hidden chamber, an abandoned cyber repair shop. Broken machines lined the walls and the air smelled of ozone and oil. He set her down gently. "We'll rest here for a bit." Lyra's glowing skin flickered again. She touched her wrist and a faint holographic pattern shimmered, a strange code or symbol. Ryan stared. "What is that?" She hesitated. "It's a tracker. But I disabled it." Ryan's stomach sank. "Then how did they find us?" Lyra looked away, her voice trembling. "Because I think my father wants you to find me. He's using me to draw someone out." Ryan felt cold all over. "Who?" She looked straight toward the shadows, her voice barely a whisper. "You." Outside, the sound of footsteps echoed again, heavier this time. Someone was already standing at the door, a shadow with glowing red eyes, waiting. The metal door shuddered under a heavy strike. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryan froze, his pulse pounding. Someone was outside. He looked at Lyra, who sat weakly against the wall, her glowing skin now dim and pale. "Stay quiet," he whispered, gripping a broken wrench as a weapon. Another strike. The hinges bent. Then a loud creak, and the door burst open. A tall woman in a black cloak stepped through the smoke, holding a small lantern that glowed blue. Her face was scarred, her hair silver gray and her eyes sharp as blades. She looked at Ryan, then at Lyra, and said in a calm voice, "You picked the wrong alley to hide in, boy." Ryan lifted the wrench. "Stay back," the woman raised a hand. "If I wanted you dead, you already would be. I'm here because you're carrying someone valuable." Lyra stirred. "Mara?" she whispered. The woman paused. "You remember me, child?" Ryan blinked. "You know her?" Mara knelt beside Lyra, touching her forehead gently. "Once I served her family, before her father decided my skills were more useful in the black market." She looked up at Ryan. "She's dying, human. What did you do to her?" "Nothing," Ryan said quickly. "I found her like this. She's blind. She said she needed a healer." Mara's eyes softened slightly. "Then you brought her to the right ghost." She stood and motioned for him to follow. "Come, before the Syndicate finds this place." They followed her through narrow back passages that smelled of rust and oil. Finally, they reached an old underground chamber lit by dim lights and surrounded by strange medical devices. Part machine, part alien. "This is where I patch up those the world forgets," Mara said, placing Lyra on a table made of steel and wires. "But saving her won't be easy." Ryan stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Mara lifted the cloth from Lyra's eyes. The sight made Ryan flinch. Beneath the blood and bruises, small metal filaments glimmered inside her eye sockets. "She's not blind by nature," Mara explained. "Someone installed tech implants, yet advanced ones. But they're corrupted. If I remove them without the right biochip, she'll die." Ryan frowned. "Where can we get one?" Mara stared at him for a moment before answering. "In the Upper City Medical Vault, Sector 11, guarded by drones locked behind Syndicate security codes." "So it's impossible," Ryan said quietly. Mara gave a dry smile. "Everything is impossible until someone stupid enough tries." Ryan looked at Lyra. She was breathing shallowly, her lips moving silently. Maybe praying. Maybe dreaming. He clenched his fists. "Then I'll do it." Mara turned sharply. "You? A street rat who can't afford shoes? You'll break into a Syndicate vault?" Ryan met her gaze. "I've done worse to stay alive. I can do this too." The old healer studied him for a moment, then sighed. "You have courage, I'll give you that. But courage without sense gets you killed." She pulled a small device from her coat, a glowing cube. "This will open the first lock, but not the rest. You'll have to improvise." Ryan took it carefully. "What about you?" Mara went back to her tools. "I'll keep her alive as long as I can. But if you're not back before dawn, don't bother coming back at all." Outside, the colony night was silent except for the distant rumble of engines. Ryan slipped through back streets, avoiding lights and patrols. His breath came out in short bursts. His ribs still hurt from the chase earlier. But he didn't stop. He reached a broken sky bridge overlooking Sector 11, the rich district glowing gold and blue like another world. He stared at it for a long moment, thinking of Lyra's pale face, her fragile hands clutching his jacket. He whispered to himself, "You saved me when you asked me to stay. Now it's my turn." He climbed down a maintenance shaft, landing near the vault perimeter. Security drones floated above, scanning every inch. He waited, studying their pattern, then slipped through when the lights turned. The vault door loomed ahead, smooth black metal, humming with energy. He placed Mara's cube against the panel. It blinked green and the first lock clicked open. But then the alarms pulsed red, access denied. "Unauthorized DNA detected, damn it," Ryan hissed. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a wire scrap from an old mech. He jammed it into the port, sparks flying. The console beeped, then flickered. For a moment he thought it failed. Then the heavy door groaned and slid open. Inside, rows of glowing vials lined the shelves. At the center was a containment box labeled Bio-Optic Regeneration Chip, Model XN. He grabbed it just as the sound of boots echoed behind him. "Freeze!" shouted a Syndicate guard. Ryan turned, the plasma rifles pointed at his chest. He ducked as a shot scorched past his shoulder, rolling behind a crate. He smashed the emergency exit panel with his elbow, alarms screaming. Ryan sprinted down the corridor, clutching the chip tight. He didn't look back. Not when lasers hit the walls, not when pain burned through his arm, not when his blood dripped onto the floor. He only thought of Lyra's faint smile. Her blind eyes that still saw something good in him. He whispered under his breath, "Hold on, Lyra, I'm coming back." And then, with the sound of sirens chasing him through the night, he vanished into the rain. The night wind howled through the metal towers of Delta 9 as Ryan stumbled into the lower sectors, clutching the glowing biochip against his chest. His arm burned from the laser wound, but he didn't stop. The rain washed his blood away, leaving a red trail across the empty street. He ducked under a broken awning, panting. The sounds of sirens still echoed far behind. "They'll keep hunting," he muttered, his voice shaking. "But I got it. I got it." He looked down at the small capsule. It shimmered with cold blue light, tiny circuits pulsing like a heartbeat. The thing that could give Lyra her sight back. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt like he was doing something that mattered. He made his way through the maze of backstreets until he reached the healer's hideout, a rusty metal door marked with faded symbols. He knocked 3 times. The door slid open halfway. Mara stood there, arms folded, her expression unreadable. "You're still alive," she said. "That's surprising." Ryan limped inside. "I got the chip." Mara took it from him, holding it up to the dim light. "You actually did it." Her tone carried both disbelief and respect. "Now let's see if you didn't kill yourself for nothing." Ryan followed her to the back room where Lyra lay motionless on the table. Her breathing was shallow, her skin almost gray. The sight made Ryan's stomach twist. "Is she?" "Barely," Mara interrupted. "You came just in time." She pulled her tools close, glowing needles, tiny mechanical arms, wires thin as hair. Rian watched as she began working, her hands moving with speed and precision. The machines hummed softly. The biochip slid into place with a faint click. "Hold her steady," Mara ordered. Ryan gripped Lyra's arm. Her body trembled as a pulse of light passed through her veins. Her back arched and a small cry escaped her lips. Mara didn't stop. "Come on, girl. Come back to me." The machines beeped faster. The light spread to Lyra's face, down her neck, her hands. Then suddenly, silence. Everything stopped. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. "What happened? Did it work?" Mara stared at the monitor. Then she smiled faintly. "Yes, I think it did." Lyra's eyelids fluttered. Slowly she reached up and touched her face. The cloth slipped off, and for the first time her eyes opened. They glowed bright silver, alive and clear. Ryan stepped back, awe in his voice. "You can see." Lyra blinked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can see you." But before they could speak another word, the lights in the room flickered red. A deep boom shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling. Mara swore under her breath. "They found us." Outside, the roar of engines filled the night. Through the window, flashes of blue light cut across the dark. Syndicate skimmers landing on the rooftops. Ryan looked at Lyra. "We need to go. Now." Mara grabbed a plasma pistol from a drawer. "There's a back exit through the sewer line. Go." "I'll hold them." Lyra tried to rise, but her legs trembled. Ryan lifted her again. "I've got you." As they reached the tunnel door, Mara called out, "Ryan!" He turned. "Whatever happens, protect her. That girl's more than she seems." Then the wall exploded. Fire and dust filled the room. Mara was thrown backward as armored soldiers stormed in, helmets glowing red, weapons raised. Ryan barely had time to drag Lyra into the tunnel before plasma bolts ripped through the air. The tunnel shook as he ran, coughing through the smoke. Behind them, Mara's voice echoed once, a final scream, then silence. Lyra buried her face against his chest. She saved us. I'll make it worth it, Rian said through clenched teeth. They reached a small hatch and climbed up into the outer streets. The colony sky burned orange from the explosions. Sirens howled across the district. Where do we go now? Lyra asked, her voice breaking. Ryan looked toward the horizon where the towers glowed like cold fire. Somewhere they won't find us. You said your father's men control everything. There must be a place even they fear. Lyra hesitated. There is. The dead zone. Old city ruins outside the colony wall. No signals, no drones, no syndicate. Ryan nodded. Then that's where we go. He started toward the edge of the sector. But as they turned a corner, a shadow blocked their path. A tall figure stepped out of the smoke. Long coat, mechanical arm, and red cyber eyes glowing in the rain. Ryan Vale, the man said in a cold, distorted voice. You've caused quite the mess, Rion froze. Who are you? The man tilted his head. Name's Commander Threx. I serve Vorn Krail, her father. Lyra gasped. Threx? You were his enforcer. Threx smirked. And you were his heir. He wants you home. Ryan positioned himself in front of Lyra. She's not going anywhere with you. Threx raised his metal arm, the barrel shifting into a plasma cannon. Then you die instead. Lightning flashed, painting the alley in white light. Ryan gripped a fallen pipe, blood dripping from his hand. The sound of the cannon charged up, a low hum like thunder. Lyra's eyes glowed bright silver. Ryan, move. A burst of blue light exploded from her palms, energy pure and blinding. Threx was thrown backward into the wall with a crash. When the light faded, Ryan stared at her in shock. What was that? Lyra trembled, her eyes dimming again. What my father wanted me for. The power I never wanted. Ryan caught her as she collapsed in his arms. Above them, the Syndicate sirens wailed louder, but the rain fell harder, washing their tracks away as they disappeared into the storm. The rain never stopped over Delta 9. It fell like a curse, endless, heavy and cold. Ryan pushed forward through the storm, carrying Lyra on his back. She was weak again, her silver eyes dimming under exhaustion. Every few steps she whispered something half-dreamed, words in an alien language that Ryan couldn't understand. Behind them, the city burned in small patches of fire. Syndicate patrols swarmed the lower sectors, their lights cutting through the dark like search beams from a nightmare. But out here near the colony's edge there was only silence and wind. Rian found an old freight tunnel leading out to the wastelands. The air inside was thick with dust and memories. He set Lyra down gently against the cold wall. You need to rest, he said. We're almost there. Lyra nodded weakly. You saved me again, he smiled faintly. Seems to be a habit. But before he could sit, the faint hum of machinery echoed down the tunnel. Ryan froze. He pressed a finger to his lips. Lyra listened, her hearing sharper than his. She whispered, It's not drones. It's something else. A few seconds later, a flickering hologram sparked to life against the wall. It wasn't random static. It was a message. And the face that appeared made Ryan's blood run cold. Vorn Krail. The Syndicate Leader, Lyra's father. His voice filled the tunnel, calm and deep. To the human boy who carries what is mine. I see your courage. I also see your ignorance. You've stolen my daughter and yet you think you've rescued her. Ryan stepped forward. What do you want from her? He shouted, though the hologram couldn't hear him. Krail continued, his tone colder now. She is not what she seems. She carries within her the core of the Ether Project, a weapon born from our own bloodline. She was created to destroy, not to feel. Bring her to me and I will let you live. The hologram flickered out, leaving silence heavy as stone. Rion turned to Lyra, shock in his eyes. Is it true? What's the Ether Project? Lyra's face paled. She didn't answer at first and only looked away, her hands trembling. Finally, she whispered, It's something I never wanted to be. My father used our family's DNA to create living weapons, beings who could channel pure energy. I was the first successful one. But when he saw I could feel pain, he called me a defect. Ryan's chest tightened. So you ran away, she nodded slowly. I wanted to see the world beyond his control. But his men caught me. When I refused to fight for him, he blinded me, said I didn't deserve to see the light of his empire. Ryan clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. No father does that to his child. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears. That's because he stopped being a father a long time ago. Ryan knelt in front of her. You're not a weapon, Lyra, you're alive. You're real. She looked up at him, voice trembling. Why do you care so much? He hesitated, then said quietly, because someone once left me behind too, and I swore I'd never let anyone else feel that again. For a moment, the world seemed to stop, just rain and breathing echoing through the tunnel. Then, a new sound broke the quiet, a distant explosion. The ground shook under their feet. Ryan pulled her up. They've tracked us again. We need to move. They reached the end of the tunnel, emerging into the dead zone, an endless plain of broken machines and collapsed towers. The sky was red with static, the air thick with electric dust. No signals reached this place. No Syndicate dared to live here. They found an abandoned control tower and climbed inside. It was cold, but it had shelter. Ryan lit a small fire using old circuit boards. Lyra sat beside it, staring at the flames. Your father called me ignorant, Ryan said after a while. Maybe he's right. I don't know what I'm doing. But I know you deserve better than him. Lyra looked at him through the glow. You sound like someone who's lost everything. Rion smiled sadly. Maybe that's why I found you. For the first time since the night began, Lyra laughed softly, a sound fragile but warm. You're strange, Ryan Vale. Before he could reply, the tower lights flickered, then died. The fire dimmed to embers. Ryan looked up. That's not good. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They're here. From outside came the steady rhythm of footsteps, heavy, slow, metallic. The door below creaked open. Ryan reached for a metal rod lying nearby, his pulse racing. Stay behind me. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped. A cold voice echoed from the stairway. Ryan Vale, your bravery is wasted. Out of the shadows stepped Commander Threx, armor scorched from their last fight but still standing strong. His cybernetic arm hummed with fresh power. You should have run farther, boy, he said. Your little rebellion ends here. Lyra stood shakily, her hands glowing faintly again. Threx, stop this. My father doesn't want me alive. He wants control. Threx's eyes burned red. He wants what's his. You were never meant to run from destiny. Ryan tightened his grip on the rod. Funny thing about destiny, he said through clenched teeth. It changes when people like me show up. The commander smiled, baring his metallic teeth. Then let's see if your fate is worth dying for. The air crackled as the two faced each other. One human with nothing to lose. One machine bred for war, and between them a girl born to destroy. Outside, thunder rolled again, and the war for truth began. The wind outside screamed through the broken windows, carrying dust and the faint hum of thunder. Inside the old tower, the air was thick with tension. Ryan stood in front of Lyra, gripping the metal rod like a blade. His breath came out in sharp bursts. Commander Threx advanced slowly, red light from his cyber eye cutting through the smoke. Move aside, boy, Threx said coldly. You don't belong in this story. Ryan didn't move. Maybe not. But I'm still in it. Threx's metal arm hummed, energy building. Sparks crawled along his armor. You can't stop me. I was built for war. Ryan stepped forward, his voice steady. And I was built for nothing. That means I've got nothing to lose. Without warning, Threx fired. A blinding beam of blue plasma tore across the room. Ryan dove aside, rolling behind a fallen console. The blast shattered steel and filled the air with sparks. Lyra shouted, Stop! You'll kill him! Threx turned to her. Your father ordered your return, alive or broken. Her eyes glowed with fury. I won't go back. A pulse of light burst from her hands, slamming into Threx. He staggered but didn't fall. You still think you can fight destiny? Ryan crawled out from cover, swinging the metal rod at Threx's arm. The blow sparked but didn't break through. The commander grabbed Ryan by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You think courage can beat strength? Threx hissed. Ryan choked, struggling to speak. No, but heart can. He jammed the rod into Threx's damaged shoulder joint. Sparks exploded. The grip loosened. Ryan dropped, gasping for air. Lyra fired another surge of light, striking Threx square in the chest. The commander fell back, crashing into the wall. His red eyes flickered. Ryan, we have to go, she shouted. But the floor trembled before they could move. The walls cracked. The air filled with the roar of engines, massive ones. From the clouds above, a dark shape descended, a Syndicate dropship, its lights burning like fire. The tower shook as it landed nearby, and out of the smoke stepped a figure in black armor and a long coat trimmed with gold. Vorn Krael. Lyra froze. Her lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "Father." Ryan turned to face him. He had imagined the Syndicate leader as a monster, but the truth was worse. Krael's presence alone made the air heavy. His eyes were calm, cruel, calculating. "Lyra," he said, his tone smooth. "My lost daughter returns." "I'm not your daughter anymore," she said, voice trembling. Krael smiled slightly. "You say that, yet you still carry my power. Do you even know what you are?" Ryan stepped forward. "She's not a weapon. She's a person." Krael's gaze shifted to him. "And you must be the human who thinks he can save her." He studied Ryan with quiet interest. "Tell me, boy, why do you fight for something that can never love you back?" Ryan clenched his fists. "Because I don't care what she was made for. I care who she wants to be." For a brief second, something almost human flickered in Krael's eyes, then vanished. "You speak like a fool." He raised his hand. The air shimmered as drones emerged from the dropship, weapons glowing. Lyra cried out, "Father, stop! Please!" Krael's voice grew sharp. "You were meant to lead my armies. Instead, you run with vermin. Do you think this human will save you from what you are?" Lyra's eyes blazed. "I don't need saving. I just need to be free." The energy in her hands grew brighter, wild, and unstable. The drones turned toward her. "Don't!" Ryan shouted. "You'll kill yourself." She looked at him, her eyes full of light, her voice soft. "Maybe freedom costs that much." Before she could release the blast, Ryan rushed forward and grabbed her hands. The energy burned his palms, but he held on. "No, you don't have to fight alone." A shock wave exploded between them, not destructive but pure. It rippled outward, throwing the drones aside and shattering Krael's mask of control. He stumbled back, eyes wide. "Impossible. The ether is reacting to him?" Mara's words echoed in Ryan's mind. "That girl's more than she seems." Ryan gasped, his body glowing faintly with the same silver light. "What's happening?" Lyra whispered, our energy linked. "It's sinking." Krael's fury turned to fear. "No, that power is mine." He raised his weapon, firing at them. Ryan threw himself in front of Lyra. The blast struck his side, tearing through fabric and flesh. Lyra screamed. Her light surged uncontrollably, wrapping them both in a sphere of blinding silver energy. When the glow faded, the drones were gone, melted into ash. Krael stood trembling, weapon destroyed, face pale. Ryan fell to his knees, bleeding, his hands still glowing faintly. "Guess that I hit back harder than I thought." Lyra caught him as he collapsed. Tears streaked her face. "No, stay with me." Krael stared at them both, disbelief mixing with rage. "You would choose him over your own kind?" Lyra looked up, voice calm but cold. "Over cruelty?" "Yes, over hate?" "Always." For the first time, Krael stepped back. His armor hummed weakly as the dropship began to rise. "You will regret this." "Daughter." She held Ryan close, whispering, "I already regret what you made me." The ship vanished into the storm, leaving silence behind. Ryan coughed, smiling faintly through pain. "Did we win?" Lyra brushed his hair from his eyes. "Not yet, but we survived." Thunder rolled again outside, soft and distant, and for the first time it didn't sound like war. It sounded like hope. The storm had passed. Only the soft hiss of wind moved through the broken tower now. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling and pooled around the still shapes on the floor. Ryan, bleeding and half-conscious, and Lyra, kneeling beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She pressed her trembling hands against his wound. "Stay with me, Ryan, please." He smiled weakly. "You said that once already." "Don't joke now," she whispered, voice cracking. "You'll be fine. I can heal you. I can try." She focused, letting her energy flow through her palms. Light spread beneath her fingers, warm and alive. Ryan winced but didn't pull away. The glow stitched torn flesh together, slowly stopping the bleeding. When she finally stopped, sweat ran down her face. "You're stable," she said, breathless. Ryan looked at her, his voice soft. "You're shaking." She laughed quietly, almost crying. "I just fought my father, destroyed his army, and nearly lost you. Of course I'm shaking." He tried to sit up, but pain forced him back down. "You shouldn't have used your energy like that." You could have burned yourself out. Lyra shook her head. What good is power if I can't use it to protect someone? For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain outside had turned to mist and the sunrise began to paint the ruins gold. Ryan finally broke the silence. So what happens now? He'll come again, won't he? Lyra looked toward the horizon where the clouds glowed orange. He'll try, but not right away. The ether link between us scared him. He doesn't understand it, and that makes him afraid. Ryan chuckled weakly. Never thought I'd scare a man like that. You didn't, she said with a small smile. We did. He looked at her then. Really looked. Not at the glowing eyes or alien skin, but the way she smiled despite everything. You know, he said, when I first found you in that alley, I thought you were just some lost kid. Lyra tilted her head. And now? Now I think you're the reason I stopped running. Her eyes softened. You were never running, Ryan. You were just waiting for something to fight for. They stayed in the tower for hours, letting the wind dry the floor and the morning light fill the broken windows. Ryan's strength slowly returned, though he could still feel the ache deep inside. Lyra moved quietly, collecting what little they had. A few supplies, the remains of Mara's medical kit, and a rusted compass Ryan had carried since childhood. When she turned back, he was standing by the open doorway watching the sunrise. You're leaving, she said quietly. Ryan didn't look at her. I have to. Your father will come for you again. If I stay, he'll find you faster. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. And if you leave, he'll find you first. Ryan smiled sadly. Yeah, but at least that keeps him off your trail. She grabbed his arm. Don't do this alone. He turned, placing his hand gently over hers. I'm not. I've got your promise, remember? Her throat tightened. Promise, he nodded. You said we'd meet again when the world was safe. Tears filled her eyes. That was before all this. Then promise me again, he said softly. Say it. Lyra swallowed hard. We'll meet again, Ryan Vale. He smiled, and a tired, genuine smile. That's all I need. By noon, the colony skyline shimmered in the distance. Ryan packed what little he had, a knife, a broken communicator, a strip of Mara's cloth tied around his wrist. Lyra watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. Where will you go? She asked. Anywhere the stars will take me, he said. Maybe out past the trade routes. Maybe find work with a freighter crew. Humans still have their uses somewhere. Lyra stepped closer. If you ever need me. He touched the glowing crystal pendant around her neck, the one that had once powered her tracker. I'll know where to look, she nodded. And if they find you, he grinned faintly. Then I'll just remind them what humans are good at, surviving. She laughed softly through her tears. Goodbye, Ryan. He turned away before his voice could break. Not goodbye, just later. As he walked into the wasteland, the sun broke fully over the horizon. The light caught the broken city, turning every shard of metal into fire. Lyra watched until his figure disappeared into the haze, her chest heavy but calm. She touched her pendant, whispering, Be safe. Far ahead, Ryan climbed a ridge and looked back one last time. From there, the colony looked small, fragile even. He smiled faintly. Guess even monsters can't stop hope. He pulled his coat tighter, the wind whipping through his hair. The ache in his ribs reminded him he was still alive. Somewhere behind him in the ruins, a girl with silver eyes watched the same sky. Somewhere ahead, the universe waited. Vast, strange, and full of stories yet to come. And so the tale of the homeless human who carried the blind alien girl through the storm became legend. They said he vanished into the stars. They said she rebuilt what her father destroyed. And they said the two lights, one human, one alien, would meet again when the galaxy finally learned what it meant to be kind.